Hey there, good evening. Nice to see you. It's time for the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters and writers and editors, journalists, people writing stuff about the Bronx so that you can get some insight, know what's really going on. Second segment, we're going to go down and do the Bronx Art Space, which is one of the wonderful new places for artists in the Bronx. But right now, let's start out with a reporter at AM New York. He says he covers transit, but there's nothing that he wouldn't be interested in. It is Ben Brackfield. Nice to see you, Ben.
Thanks, Gary, for having me. I really appreciate it.
What I really want to get into, and what I think is fascinating, is there was some movement on the Cross Bronx Expressway, but because it wasn't finalized and they didn't cut the ribbon and say, now we're doing this, it's still kind of in the works. It hasn't gotten a lot of coverage. And you wrote a nice piece on it. And I want to just talk about it. The piece is entitled City Advancing Proposals to Cap Parts of the Cross Bronx Expressway, Add Green Space Along the Way. Tell us a little bit about the draft study that the city and state departments of transportation released, and then we can kind of figure out what they may be thinking about and what they may be doing.
Sure. So the city and the state, they won a $2 million grant from the Biden infrastructure bill. It's a program called Reconnecting Communities, and it's basically a program that is designed to bridge neighborhoods that were severed under by the urban highways that were built throughout much of the 20th century, all throughout the city, including in New York. The Cross Bronx is one of the most infamous of those. And I'm sure much of your audience has read The Power Broker, and there's the Cross Bronx was famously designed by the quote unquote master builder Robert Moses, and at the end of the day, it displaced. It was driven through existing neighborhoods, and it displaced tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people.
Hundreds of thousands for generations, and destroyed Bronx lungs for generations.
That's true.
What are they trying? The whole idea of capping it. I mean, what are we making it a tunnel, or we're making it a tunnel in places? Like what do they really think about? Because the idea, I mean, I forget how long it is, 6 miles or whatever it is. The idea of putting the whole thing underneath is a little bit specious. So I don't know what the word, maybe not realistic. So what physically are they thinking about? And then we'll talk about all the little nuances of other things that they do.
Yeah. So they're not talking about doing the whole thing. They say that that certain portions of the Cross Bronx are not feasible for that. The main portions of the Cross Bronx that would be feasible to put a cap over are the portions of it that are below ground in like a trench. And that's like a little less than half of the stretch of the highway from west to east in the Bronx. And so what they're saying is that they could put, some
kind of cover over it?
Like a cover over it, like a cap. And it would be, it could be covered in parkland. It could feasibly be covered by like apartments or roads and stuff. And so basically what they want to do is they want, people to be able to cross the Cross Bronx, I guess.
So it doesn't break up our communities like it did.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And and that could be by building a new park or building apartments or new connections to get to the subway. There's
really from one side to the other, let's say from, for example, Westchester Avenue, to be able to get over to the other side. And that would really, frankly, be pretty exciting. What I think is interesting, and I'm sure you've covered the Metro North plan in the Bronx as well. The whole idea there, and we did on my other show, Bronx Talk, interview the people from Department of City Planning. They claim in writing, in statement, that this is a community-driven methodology, and they reached an agreement on the Metro North plan with the development that they're going to get along with it. And I think they're applying the same methodology here, to rather than just say, okay, here, like Robert Moses did, here's our plan. Uh,
Mhm.
let's get communities involved. But you believe that this is kind of a fair process, a process that's going to include the Bronxites that have something to say about it?
I mean, I think let's put it one way. New York's planning process is very, very different today than it was under Robert Moses. Robert Moses just basically did whatever he wanted and had the power to do whatever he wanted. Today, and some people say that there was a bit of an overcorrection because now we're in a situation where oftentimes proposals that get uh, put forward by city planners, they end up not going anywhere for a very long time because
Because it takes forever. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because it takes forever to go through all the community workshops and outreach processes. They've done. I couldn't tell you the exact number, but they've done a lot of workshops on this project.
Yes.
They've done a lot of outreach. I mean, whether they've done enough, that's not for me to say. That's for the members of the community.
But
to say.
I think your point is a very good one, because those of us in the Bronx, certainly I've covered the Bronx for many years, but we are always concerned that we get top-down plans and we don't get input on it. But when I was reading in your article and also in the draft that they had done, the list of things resonates very well with me, who covers a lot of these things. It's the same conversation we had over there with the Metro North plan. Improve public transit, freight management, which on that highway you certainly want to do, expand open space and address health disparities, improve intersection and corridor safety, address climate hazards, all those kinds of things. It would be nice to be able to do those things. And I don't know, are we going to wait for forever? And it just seems such a daunting project, because this thing is such a physical beast that rides through the whole borough.
Exactly. So the caps, there isn't a really proposed date for implementation of the caps, because that is a very, very complex and large scale engineering project. They say, and it would be very, very expensive. Each cap, and they say they have 13 locations where they could be doing potential caps, and each one of those could cost $2 billion. So think about that. That's $26 billion to cap the Cross Bronx Expressway.
Wow.
And, and they don't have the money for that. They would need the money from the feds. They'd need it from the state. And, whether that's happening at any time soon, that's open to interpretation. But there's also other projects that are included in this draft study for that they say could be done in the quote short or medium term. You were mentioning things like freight management. They want to replace some trips that are done by trucks with marine delivery or by cargo bike. They have a proposal to. There's a program existing in the city to incentivize cleaning up truck emissions, and also they want to potentially add a bus lane on Tremont Avenue.
I was going to ask about that. So they would add a bus lane, let's say on Tremont Avenue, to take to get maybe some of the cars off, or people who want to actually traverse the Cross Bronx. But a lot of these bus lanes, and listen, I'm all for mass transit and everything else, but a lot of times these bus lanes, they squeeze the amount of cars, and so all of a sudden you got more traffic, and you got a bus lane which is valuable and valued, but you have, and when you think about more traffic on the Cross Bronx, or what I mean, you've lost a lane of traffic. So I'm wondering how they're going to do that, I guess.
Well, it's interesting because when the bus lanes go in, and there's different ways that bus lanes could be constructed, but when bus lanes are implemented, usually the bus speeds go up and ridership also goes up. So, the idea is that, and it doesn't always work in practice, but the idea is that, more people are taking the bus because it's more reliable. Anyone who's ridden a New York City bus knows that it is not always the most reliable form of transportation. But when they're, when they can actually, get to where they need to go without traffic, they could be a lot more reliable and they get more ridership. And that means, in the context of the Bronx, that means fewer people on either Tremont Avenue or the Cross Bronx Expressway.
I mentioned way up top about the effect on young people's lungs, et cetera, et cetera. If you cap it, is there a way of getting the fumes that, of course, come from the traffic and somehow making it so that it doesn't affect the air, or piping it somewhere else, or treating it so that it's not as deadly? I mean, because one thing, you cap it and then all that stuff, it goes somewhere and it's going to get out into the air anyway. Or am I just being naive about how this all works?
So
knowledge.
Yeah. So like on the, if in the study, there's stuff about ventilating the parks and the caps. So basically, anytime you want to put a cap, or I guess a tunnel over a highway, you need to ventilate it, and so it would go through these shafts. And at the end of the day, that is still emissions, but I guess they would be, these would be, enormous.
Dealt with.
Treated. It would be enormous buildings.
Yeah. You don't want it to go right up into the parks that are right above the highway. That would be self-defeating. Listen, we got about a minute left. What do you see as like the next steps now that the draft study is here? Is it more outreach to the community, get a lot of input on that? And it sounds like if they're talking about dealing with the large vehicles, they're going to have to work with the entire financial infrastructure of delivering goods, I would guess.
Yeah, so they just put out the draft report, and the final report is supposed to come out this winter. They just did another round of workshops, and there was one on last week. There was one just yesterday, in fact. And some of the short and medium term things that they were talking about, like the marine transport or the potential bus lane on Tremont Avenue, those could be implemented, in theory tomorrow. But
we do got to run. But let's see if that comes out in the winter. Let's make an appointment right now to know that you'll come back, and we'll continue this dialogue about the Cross Bronx at that time.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Great. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it.
Ben Brackfield, a reporter at AMNY, specializes in transit. And we will take a short break. And when we come back, as I said, we're going to do the Bronx Art Space. Don't go away.